we're going to jump in and go ahead and get started. I am Lauren Bell, so welcome. This is Food Truck 101 from beginner to winner. I am your host, Lauren Bell. I am the co-owner of Double Trouble Philly Cheesesteaks, and I own that business with my twin sister, Lori, and her husband, Keith. I'm working with the angle of the phone, so I'm sorry. Joining us tonight, and of course, every Monday night, is author extraordinaire, I call him. He's the creator and founder of this Facebook group here. And today, this group has over 23,000 members and is growing every single day. Bill is the author of Food Truck 101. He has also written other great books, such as Putting the Cart Before the Dog or Taking It to the Streets. I like that one. It kind of sounds a little street, like he getting jiggy with it. I love it. Bill brings 45 years plus of experience into this food industry, into our homes. His experience runs from major restaurant chains to food trucks to hot dog carts. Absolutely awesome. Bill and his wife, Melissa, spend countless hours maintaining the professionalism and the integrity of this group. So please help me welcome to the platform none other than the man himself, Mr. Bill Moore.
Thank you so much.
Woohoo, yeah.
Oh, yay. Somebody's yelling. Thank you so much, Joanne. I appreciate that. So I get to start off this week by admitting that I made a big mistake. As I was telling Lauren just a few minutes ago, I double booked the book club in my calendar. And I didn't like the way it looks, so that's why I set it up as a class. And that's what you guys have joined now as the class, because it uses the same Zoom link each week. But for some reason, I didn't delete that one lonely event that displayed on my calendar last week, but nobody else saw it. But Lauren was gracious enough to join, and we did a class last week for, I think, 2 or 3 people. So this week, we're going to repeat it. And it'll be even better. So if you joined last week and heard the sermon, so to speak, it'll be a little bit of a repeat. But I'll try to make it interesting as much as I possibly can.
Well, all right. Well, good. Well, welcome everybody. So the title of this bonus chapter is called I'm Broke. And so although I know the angle where Bill was coming from, I always tell people I never like to use those words, right? I may have a cash flow issue where maybe my money just hasn't reached your account yet, but I refuse to say I'm broke. However, the platform and idea of the book was also just letting you know that no matter where you are in your dream process, that you can move forward. All of us don't have a whole lump sum of money to pick from. Our parents used to say, money don't grow on trees. You can't just go out back and just pluck the leaves off as money and go about your way. This business is very doable. It takes some planning and it takes you being strategic. And that's one thing we love about Bill in this book, is that the way he set it up is so strategic. If you follow it from the beginning and follow the steps, it leads you right in the sequence of things that you need to do to get where you need to be. So we're going to talk tonight about some ideas. If you don't have big funds where, you could just go access and do, there are ways to get your dream off the ground. Number one, I always say it starts with your mind and how you process things. If you think you can't do it, chances are you probably cannot. And so your mind and how you think about these things is definitely going to be the force that pushes you forward. So Bill, let's open up. I know he opens up with this saying in the beginning of this chapter: nothing is more expensive than a missed opportunity. Bill, talk to us a little bit about your idea for this chapter and where our mindset should be going right now.
Well, this chapter and all the other ones that we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, and we'll talk about in the next couple of weeks, those were all bonuses. After I finished writing the book, I realized that there were still some things I needed to discuss so that people could even get into the business. And this chapter being a very prime example. A lot of people that I work with, especially on the free phone calls, are concerned about how do we get money to, buy a food truck. And you don't have to start with a food truck. I mean, that's the ultimate dream. You know, for some people, it's getting a brick and mortar. For some people, it's having a fancy trailer. But you don't have to start with that. You just got to start with something. And one of the things that people can do if they are cash flow challenged is you can do Cottage Foods. You can literally, in most states, start this weekend, because most states don't require any kind of license. They don't require any kind of inspection. They just have a set of rules that you got to follow. And the rules are pretty straightforward. There's nothing too complicated about them, and you can start to make money. Cottage foods are foods that are basically shelf stable, and that means they don't require any kind of refrigeration. That's how you're able to go out and start selling them. And there are also foods that don't require much preparation, so you can do them from home. In general, now some states are a little bit more liberal with their list than I have here, and then some states are a little bit more restrictive. But in general, you can do breads, you can do cakes, you can do cookies, you can do jams and jellies, certain jams and jellies, vinegars, candy, and what we're talking about on candies, hard candies. You can do spice mixes. Some states will let you do different coffee mixes. So there's different things that you can do from home, your home kitchen. No one's going to come inspect you, that you can prepare today to go out and sell this weekend. And all you got to do is go like to a farmer's market, for instance. And as long as you meet whatever your state requires for the labeling, you can start selling and making money. In the book, I talk about a Duncan Hines brownie mix, and it's sold with multiple packets in that same box. So you have several pans of brownies you're able to make. You add the eggs and the flour and then the oil, whip them up, and you got a bunch of brownies you can start selling. Even if you sell them for a real inexpensive price of $3 a piece, after you sell two, you've made the money for the box of brownies. When you sell the whole rest of all the different pans, you're going to be right near $90 to $100 in profit. That's not bad for just a handful of brownies that you whipped up. So imagine if you started making some breads or some cookies along with the brownies, so you can start to generate some cash. And there's other things that you can do to supplement your income. And that's really what I want to try to get people to understand, is you can start literally from nothing. It's just a matter of making a plan to do it. So if you're not interested in the cottage foods arena, then you can do things like crowdfunding. And I'm not talking about a GoFundMe. GoFundMe is for emotionally bad events that have happened to somebody. And then they write a story that tugs at the heartstrings, and people donate money randomly. When you're trying to raise funds for a business, you're going to have to be a little bit more on the professional side. And that's what Kickstarter is for. It's for people that maybe have a small business that might have, a hot dog cart like Joanne. And her goal is to get a food trailer, let's say. She can use Kickstarter to help raise funds because she already has an existing business. She's already got people that would be interested in helping her to get into, a bigger or better facility. That's one example. Here locally, somebody had it was a donut business. And they were doing actually quite well, but the place that they were renting from decided they were going to kick them out and then renovate the building and sell it. So this donut shop was doing great, and then they lost their location. So they did a Kickstarter to help them get a new location. So what a Kickstarter does, it's basically a GoFundMe, but it's for businesses. And it's got different tiers. So it encourages people to donate more and more money. And the tiers are basically just rewards. You can set up a tier. If you donate $100, I'll name a food product after you. You donate $500, I will hold a party for all the people that donate above $500 and feed and basically wine and dine them. There's all different kind of things you can do. You can give t-shirts, you can give little stuffed animals, just something to let people know that they're not just throwing money at you and you're going to spend it willy-nilly. There's also a website called Kava. I'm guessing that's how it's pronounced. It's Kiva, and it's all in capitals, and it's kiva.com. They do crowdfunded loans. So it's a similar process, but you're going to be paying back the money that is given to you. And this in micro loan amounts. You may have, 400 people donate $25. But when you do the math on that, that's a pretty decent amount of money to get started with. And all you're doing is paying back those individuals based on whatever the website explains the repayment process is. And then, of course, part of the responsibility is once you got a loan funded and then you've repaid it, is that you in turn help to fund the next loans for people that are coming after you. So that's one to check into. And of course, you can just save up. You can drive, Uber Eats or DoorDash or any of those other places that do the delivery, because you can put yourself on and off the clock as you want. There's no set schedule. There's nothing that you need to do special other than just let them know you're available to drive. You turn that on and hopefully you get a whole bunch of orders, go deliver them, and you collect that money. One of my friends does that, and he makes about $800 a week just doing it in our little tiny area. So if you live in a big city, you can probably make as much, if not more. So that's one opportunity to bolster your funds. And if you have a decent enough credit, you can borrow. You could do an SBA loan. You could do an equipment leasing loan. An equipment leasing loan only takes care of the equipment, whereas a small business administration loan, an SBA loan, could pay for the equipment. It could pay for startup inventory. It could pay for licenses. It basically gives you a lump sum check, and then you spend it however necessary to get your business going. So those are two different things you could do if you have decent enough credit. SBA loans they're kind of hard to come by because the paperwork is pretty detailed. And all an SBA loan is a guarantee from the government that whoever funds your loan, whatever bank decides to fund your loan, is guaranteed at least some of the money is going to get paid back if you default. So that's the benefit of an SBA loan. And then equipment leasing, if you have that opportunity to get funded through just the equipment itself, you got to make those payments. If you don't make the payments, they come and repossess it, and then they're going to come after you to get the balance of whatever's due. So it's just like a car loan. If you don't make the payments on the car, they repo it and they try to, sue you and ruin your credit and that kind of thing. And then the other opportunity that I know of is you can either rent or lease to own. And I'll let Lauren talk a little bit about her experience, because that's how they got started with their trailer, is in rent to own. So take it away.
So we did rent to own. Now the disclaimer I always use is when we went into business, we was pre-COVID. So that was a little different. Although there was a demand, it's not nearly as it is post-COVID. And so Lori and I, as we looked around, we called them, and one of the things that we considered, again, when you do a loan, one of the catches for us with rent to own was the fact that they told us, look, if something happens and doesn't work out, we're not coming after you later. Clean the trailer out, give it back. We'll recycle it, we'll reuse it. No big deal. That took a strain off, okay? They also had options that if you paid it off early, they took off like $13,000, $14,000 whenever you say, hey, I got money in hand now, the number seems to get a little smaller sometimes. It was easy to get into. It wasn't based on our credit. We did a little application process. They talked to us, and then we gave them a deposit. So I think at the time we gave them a $6,000 deposit. We got to do our trailer custom, how we wanted it based on what we were serving. The only problem we had was that they was trying to get us into a trailer, but did not understand the trailer versus what we were serving. And so they connected us with Bill. And when Bill was able to see our layout, he was able to say, well, if you're doing this, then the setup is not consistent with a good flow. And so as we went back to try to change some of those things, the waters got a little testy. Nevertheless, we kept good communication. Even when COVID did hit and we were out of work, trailer shut down 35 days. And when rent to own, although our deposit was about $6,000 and we had weekly payments. And if I remember correctly, our weekly payments were a little under $400 or a little over 400. So we was looking at it roughly about $1,600 a month. Now, you know, when you're into your flow, when you're doing, it's probably no big deal. But we were new to the game, completely fresh out of the water. So yeah, we knew how to cook, we knew how to do cheesesteaks, but that whole running the business aspect, the food truck, the inventory, the whole cost analysis was a challenge for us. And so Bill was able to help us every step of the way. So rent to own, the process was very easy. Communication is key. All of our equipment was brand new, spanking brand new. We were the ones who got to take the plastic off of everything. We said how many refrigerators we needed and what was needed for the process. It's just the setup was a little off because the man who was selling to us specifically had no idea how to run a food truck or a cheesesteak food truck, or was able to say, okay, if this is what you're serving, then this should be your setup. And so Bill was able to do that for us. We didn't have a problem with the process from beginning to end. Even when we needed to go back and have things tailored or something fixed, it was never a problem. They understood the flow of business. For example, if we called them and said, hey, the floor panel is loose on one of the things, or normally we wouldn't just go to them for one thing. We would normally have like maybe a little list and say, hey, we need a few things. They say, if you get it over here by this such and such, we would get over there. They would throw a couple of people in the truck with the drill, fix, boom, bam, boom, and we was back off to work. That's awesome. We didn't have to drop, we never had to drop our trailer off for repairs, never. Everything that they've ever done for our trailer, they done while we waited, grabbed breakfast, went to KFC, grabbed a wing or two, and came back and got our truck just around the corner. We never, so they understood the whole business fundamental, the whole, if our trailer's not working, we're not making money, therefore there's nobody to pay you. They understood that. And so it was a very good process for us. Have we met people through the program that story was not as positive as ours? Yes. But what we found out that the way they communicated and the way they handled things would have made any business, they would have had that reaction from anybody. And so you just be calm, you just tell people what it is you want. You know, even when they came back and said, you know, they went to Bill, I think, and said, don't change our customers' setup. What are you doing? We're already here, and you. And but even in that, we were able to keep level heads and make sure that the end goal was that everybody was happy. We worked with the flow, and we made it work for us. And so you know, other than that, be specific, know what you want. And I think that was one of the things that Lori and I had that challenge, because we knew what we wanted to do, but we didn't know how that should look. And so if you know what you want, if you know the flow, Bill does a chapter on flow. You're like, how does this flow? And if you have that prepared in your mind of what that looks like before you go, that part will be a lot easier, because then you could go in and say, this is what I want, this is my setup. And you don't have to depend on somebody else to know how you need to flow. So, I mean, that's really it in a nutshell. If you have any questions for me, any specifics, I'll be more than happy to answer them. But that was just it in a nutshell for us. So.
But if he brought her back here, why didn't she try?
The one good thing about the rent to own is you paid it out, correct?
Yes. So we were fortunate after COVID. So we had the truck at this point 13 months, and we were hustling. Okay, we really were. But we had another almost year, almost 11 months to pay, and so we were blessed with some followers that have been following us, friends of the family who just wanted to do something nice for us. And it was a whole lot going on in the world, that whole George Floyd thing, but just so much going on. And he approached us. We've never asked anybody for anything. He approached us, wanted to know what can they do for us. And how do you answer that question, right? So eventually, a couple of weeks later, he asked us to please get the balance of our trailer. And Lori and I were screaming and hollering, like, you know, Lori could give you more details, but in a nutshell, that following Friday, he wrote us a check for $19,048 and paid off our trailer and gave us our title. And so hard work, y'all, pays off. I don't care what it looks like. I just tell everybody a tidbit of my encouraging word is that it only takes faith the size of a mustard seed. And so when you show up every day and you plan and you prepare and you do the work, somehow, some way, a way is made for you. And so we were fortunate. We'll be 3 years in September, and we're still pushing. We came into a rough patch, you know, with Dad and all of that, but we're still pushing, you know, we're still pushing. And that's what we want you to do. Just push through no matter what it looks like. So.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I've been with you every step of the way. Before y'all ever opened, we've been talking.
Yeah. Yes.
And the neat thing about rent to own is it's 104 payments and it's yours. The other thing I've got listed there is lease to own. Lease to own's a little bit different because the lease to own, they only put a portion of your payment towards ownership. The rest of it is their own profit. In the book, I list rent to own, and then I also talk about Joe, the cart guy. He's the one that does leasing, but he doesn't own his own finance company. He just builds the trailers, and then the finance company steps in and does the lease to own. So the finance company wants to make money, and of course, Joe wants to make money on building his trailers.
A bunch of crooks.
So he gets paid, and the leasing company gets paid as well. The comparison in the book, it talks about if you pay out the lease completely to the point where you can buy it, you pay about $104,000 for the exact same trailer as if you were to do it as a rent to own. So there are ways to get a food trailer if you know what to do. And don't be afraid to even take out a loan. A lot of people say, no, don't go into debt. Well, I will tell you, there is no major corporation outside of maybe one that I can think of that has not at one point or another been in debt, that has gotten loans. And look what Elon Musk is trying to do with Twitter. He's not paying for Twitter. He's got a whole bunch of other people lined up using their money to pay for Twitter. So that's all that a loan is. You're using somebody else's money to get yourself into business. And as long as you're responsible, having a loan is not a big deal. I mean, there's pressure there, but I would take out a loan every single day of the week. I'd rather have somebody else's money taking care of the business rather than me putting, you know, my $100,000 into a trailer and now I have 100,000 less in my bank account. Let me borrow 100,000. I'll pay it back to somebody in little bits. Let the business pay for itself. So anyway, the two things that we talked about there, rent to own is out of Houston, Texas. Lease to own, Joe the cart guy, he's in Virginia, and his leasing company is in New England somewhere. Can't remember exactly where it is. I like rent to own's quality. I also like Joe's quality. I don't like the lease to own because you pay way more than you should be. At least with rent to own, the total payout makes sense. Because I mean, obviously they are financing you, even though it's not financing per se, but they deserve to make money as well. But they certainly don't need to make what the lease to own companies make, you know, double and 2.5 times what the thing's worth.
Yes. And then I think on ours too, you're right, Bill. I think our total price would have been like 48. That would have been our total. But then once we did the payoff and then deduct the payments and then whatever else they took off, I want to say we were like right up, we were under 35.
Yeah.
And that's with a spanker brand new and everything. Right now, that same trailer is probably, I can't even imagine.
Well, he's not building a 14-foot one anymore, but the next size up to 16-foot, I'm pretty sure they're starting at like 45, somewhere in there.
Okay.
So that's a big difference just in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
But to be able to buy a brand new one, and his, like I said, his builds are solid. To be able to buy a brand new one and even making those weekly payments, I would do that all day long.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I have that much confidence in what I can do with the menu, what I can do with the speed of service, and, you know, just the friendliness. the friendliness aspect of the business. So I'm not afraid of a loan. And it really bothers me when people get on our Facebook group and say, no, don't get a loan. You'll never, because what that means is I'm planning on failing. And that's all that means. When you tell someone don't get a loan, that means I think you're going to fail. You don't accept failure. You don't give yourself that out. Get that loan and then make it work. You will not fail if you work. It's just that simple. But anyway,
I know.
there's my favorite quote. You can have everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want. And that's what I do. That's why the group exists. That's why I write the books. That's why I do the coaching. That's why I help people like Lauren and Lori. I like helping people. That's just who I am. And I can't get enough of it, to be honest with you.
Let me just piggyback off of what you said. Normally when I say to anybody, anybody about getting loans, there's a couple of factors for me that come into play. You know, if you already have plenty of loans and you already are having trouble, but let's just say it's your house, your car, just so much going on, and you already have issues making the payments of the things you already have. My first thought process is don't put your business in jeopardy by getting a loan if you don't have to. That's kind of where my thought process comes in sometimes. Well, you know, if you work and you plan it, you know, and so it just depends on where you are. But Bill is absolutely right. In your mind, you don't want to give yourself an out. There's no option for failure. This business can definitely work. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Of course, anything worth having is going to take some work. It's going to take some work. I'm not saying it's easy out here. Food trucks are in demand. And at the same time, we see people every day that's folding. People are selling their stuff. People have gotten food trucks, thought things was going to happen one way, and it just didn't happen. Whether that was a plan that failed, but maybe they didn't have a plan. Maybe it was just an idea. Some people do things so quick and without the detailed thought. That's why this book was so awesome, because it allowed you to systematically think of things before you even invested and dropped your head in the game. You know, some of us go into things head first and we don't count up the costs. And that's where we get into trouble. And so, you know, this business is fun, but sometimes the sweat is rolling more than the laughter. I mean, you understand what I'm saying? I want you all to be encouraged to do what's in your heart to do, but make no mistake, this is work. It's work. And if you're going to build a brand, if you're going to build a reputation, if you're going to keep your customer service at a high level, it's going to take effort. It's not going to happen by accident, you know? And the last thing I'll say, and then I'll yield the mic. The last thing I say is if you're in a partnership of any kind, whether it's a husband and wife, sisters, brothers, cousins, I don't care what it is, have an understanding. If you don't have that support now, the last thing you need to do is to try to move forward in something and you don't have a support system. Husbands and wives sometimes can be that crack, because it's like, you know, you take things personal or whatever the case. Just have a plan. You know, if you're not agreeing on things now, businesses don't make that better. Figure out what it is you need to do so that you could go in and put all in that you have. And but you know, partnerships can be good, but it takes some time, those conversations that's not comfortable. Whether it's husband or wife, whether it's twin sisters, girlfriend, boyfriend, sometimes you guys are going to be, you know, in each other's face. Why? Because everybody has their ideas and everybody has their focus. And you have to be able to say who's doing what, who's in charge, just to get it going, whether it's money. Sometimes we don't all agree on what should happen with the money. So those are things that, you know, when we're talking about I'm broke and we're needing money to do things, you don't want to be pulling money and she's not in agreement. And now you got a business, you got a trailer, and y'all fighting. That goes with any partnership. I'm not just saying husband and wife, that's any partnership. So you got to be willing to get down on the ground. You got to be willing to take some losses sometime and understand that you're not going to win this argument. We'll have to revisit it later. Maybe it'll come to me and Lori used to argue about our menu items. I wanted a fryer. She didn't. I wanted French fries. Not right now. That's more money. I don't see it. But we had already agreed that she would handle some of the money and she would handle those things so that there was always an authority figure. So that at the end of the day, somebody made the decision and later, the other ones may have to yield sometime. Everything I've ever wanted, I've always been able to go back and get, but sometimes not in the beginning when I mentioned it. And so just keep those things in mind as you move forward, because those are things that people won't talk about. And they make it seem like, oh, it's all hunky-dory. Oh, the twins get along all the time. We were born together. We've been kicking each other ever since we were in the womb. So that doesn't get better just because we're grown. I mean, we don't have discord and that, Jerry and nothing crazy. But we do have those disagreements. She's had to call Bill and say, Lauren, don't get it. I've had to call because we knock heads because we have our own ideas. And sometimes they gel and sometimes they don't. And sometimes I have to be willing to say, you know what? We'll talk about it later. But let's forget it now. And then later on, she'll come back and go, I think we need to try that. And maybe she was looking at the money or the bottom line. Whatever the deal is, just talk about those things. And so anyway, I yield the mic, give somebody else a chance. I just wanted to share that.
I'm glad you did. I mean, that's a very important part of any business. And that's the communication. And whether it's between two co-owners or it's between the cashiers and the cooks, the communication is what makes the business work. And it's certainly difficult when you do have a partnership, no matter what the relationship is between the two people. You got to have that open communication. And then you've also got to have those boundaries that, okay, we will stop discussing this and table it for another time. All right, next week, before we get into the question and answer part, next week we'll be talking about credit card processing. And we'll talk about the different ways that you can process credit cards and some of the schemes that you'll run across. One of my friends is actually talking to me earlier today about doing credit cards because he has an in with one of the credit card processing companies. But in any case, if you haven't already left a review on Amazon, please do so. Those things mean the world to me. We're up to 51, I think now, which I think is actually awesome.